In Kenya, a very significant day for Kenya, 1 year after the August 8th poll, but it's been a rather significant last couple of days for the nation of South Sudan. Now, South Sudan's leaders are giving peace another chance. Many ceasefire deals have been signed. Unfortunately, they've collapsed quickly, but a deal was signed this weekend that many hope and believe will be the final one. And to give you a bit of history about a few of the deals that have been signed in the past, let's briefly put those up for you on the screen. And on the 10th of May 2014, a peace deal was signed. It called for an end to hostilities within 24 hours and hindered humanitarian access, the formation of a transitional government, and a plan to draft a new constitution. But these goals were not achieved. Let's fast forward to 2015. Another deal was signed. It called for the end of fighting to stop immediately, all military forces to leave the capital, Juba, and rebels were supposed to get the post of first vice president. There are a few other agreements that were made with that particular peace deal there, transitional government, elections, etc. Again, something went wrong after this deal, and so we go again to 11th July 2016, where after a period of some rather heavy conflict, a ceasefire was called, the cessation of hostilities, and troops on both sides were asked to disengage by their leaders. Now, we know that late last year, IGAD, which is the Intergovernmental Authority on Development Ceasefire, called for an end to the 4-year civil war. A deal was signed that would allow humanitarian groups to access civilians who have been caught in the fighting. But again, that deal also did not quite bring about the results many hoped. So we take you now to late last month, where a permanent ceasefire was agreed on, the opening of corridors for humanitarian aid, the release of prisoners, the withdrawal of forces. And on the 6th of August 2018, a power-sharing agreement was signed that called for sort of 3 months to form a transitional government, which will then take effect for a further 36 months with the inclusion of both the government, Riek Machar and his party, and of course some other opposition parties as well. Now, joining me in studio to talk a little bit about all this and so much more is the South Sudan ambassador to Kenya, Ambassador Chol Ajuong. Welcome to the program.
Welcome.
Thank you for finding time to be here with us today.
Thank you very much.
I know I might not even have all the information. You might have been watching and thinking there's a lot more to that. But my question to you is, how many deals does South Sudan need for lasting peace?
Well, first of all, I have to thank South Sudanese and the region as well for this final deal. And yes, we have signed a number of deals or agreements, but due to some technicalities, we didn't go through them. Something went wrong with them. But there's hope that this time around, we'll get it right.
What do you think has been the biggest technicality in your view?
Well, the last deal, the 2015 one, was about the composition of the government itself and then the having two armies. The government had quite a number of reservations on the two armies because we were looking at you have a national army, which is the SPLA. The opposition was to come in with its army. Inside the capital, Juba, you had 10 meters apart the armed forces, that is the government of South Sudan, national army, and then the rebels armies that were few meters apart.
Okay.
The region, of course, we said, because of the resources issue, something could have been done to work on integration of the two forces. The parties were left apart. With the hostilities, everything
fell apart. What makes sort of this particular deal different, this power sharing agreement, in your view?
Popular support for the peace, the need for peace in South Sudan is very strong.
Would you call it an all-time high, the highest it's been?
Exactly, because South Sudanese felt there is a need to give peace a chance. And if you could see in Khartoum where people were celebrating, and then also when President Salva came back from Khartoum, he was celebrating, the reception at the airport. Across the South, demonstrations supporting the process for peace. And this is about the will of the people.
Okay.
When the people decide to go for peace, because when you're talking of rebellions, those who are fighting are actually the young men who are joining the rebellions. But if that popular support for the peace, the need to give peace a chance, definitely it will hold.
Media commentators feel that this deal is quite similar to the previous one. Do you agree with them?
Well, this media, they can say they have their own judgment.
Yeah, but I'm sure you read the articles.
Yes, I read the articles, but I'm putting the trust in the people of South Sudan, because we came from far when it comes to war and peace. And we always say this, if there are people in this region that know what war means, it should be us, we South Sudanese. We fought that long.
Okay.
And the reason why we are into this state, nobody wants it. But again, as a result of where we came from, lack of weak institutions, that's one of the reasons why we came to where we are. And there is hope that people have realized that, you know, we basically gain nothing by war, but we lose nothing by peace.
Okay. And that has sort of brought the new hope that you're seeing.
Yes.
What role would you say South Sudan's neighbors have played, especially with this particular deal?
Well, South Sudanese, the neighbors have been actually supportive of South Sudan. Take, for example, Kenya. You know, from day one, Kenya has been very, very supportive. And just to give an example, what is happening in Khartoum should have actually also happened in Kenya. The agreement in IGAD was that Khartoum has to host a round of talk, and then the rest could be completed in Nairobi, being Kenya as the reporter, President Uhuru Kenyatta for the IGAD. But because of their concern and their commitment to peace in South Sudan, Kenyan government decided to say, okay, so long as the progress is taking place in Khartoum, we don't need to abrupt the process to gain the momentum. Moving the whole process again to Nairobi may create new dimensions. Okay. So definitely we supported, as a government of Kenya, the process to continue in Khartoum as the SDR. And this one shows that how supportive the region is. Same thing applies on Ethiopia and Uganda. All these attempts were made by all these regions. Prime Minister of Ethiopia have been leading this process. And then he decided through IGAD that President Bashir should also have to take over the process, because we had quite a number of rebels, quite a number of opposition actually based in Khartoum. So you could see that President Bashir and Khartoum, as a result, will have some sort of influence on some of the rebels or some of the opposition leaders, let me say, instead of rebels, because now we are talking peace. So basically they are opposing the government of South Sudan. So the region has been very, very supportive. And even this process to continue, the success of this process, the regions has to be supportive of it, because if the region pulls together to provide all what is required during the implementation period, because to sign peace is one thing. It's one thing. And then the devil is in the details always. When you come to the implementation of the details, so we may need some know-how and support and assistance from the region, which we are counting on, because we strongly believe that with support of Kenya, Sudan, Uganda, and Ethiopia, and everything, and the rest, this thing can go through. This thing can go through. Yeah. There's a popular English saying, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. There are those who say that your boss, Salva Kiir, and Riek Machar simply cannot share power. A more pragmatic solution would have been the way forward. How do you respond to those skeptics? There is nothing very pragmatic in the whole process, because these are people. Salva, as a president, was elected by the people of South Sudan. He still have that legal mandate by the people of South Sudan, with a percentage of 90-something at the time during elections. Also, if you look at Dr. Riek Machar, he comes also from a community with huge followings in the region. So therefore, talking of two gentlemen out of political equation will not actually solve the problem as well. And we have so many examples in the region. We can talk of so many examples in the region where power sharing. Do you think they've ended well? With the same people doing the same thing, but they are still always there. But Ambassador, I mean, you've looked at Kenya. I mean, our power sharing agreements, they're not long term. They're usually short term. Just fix a problem, but in the long term, the parties eventually go off on their own. Well, fixing one problem is better than not fixing any. Okay? And I think this is also should be very straight. I mean, for us, this is about institution building. It's actually not about power sharing per se. All what we are going through is actually building a nation, and building a nation actually starts from somewhere. You know, this is Kenya. 50 years down the road, you are still having some problem fixing powers and the rest. You are just talking of South Sudan, only few years. But this is not to condone mistakes that have happened, definitely. We should have actually learned from those who were ahead of us, countries in the region. But we believe, South Sudanese believe, if you read across the border, I mean, all the social media these days, everybody's positive that this time around, we are going to get it right. This time around, we're going to get it right. Both your boss, President Salva Kiir, Riek Machar, have walked away from previous deals for one reason or the other. How will this new deal be enforced? The enforcement of the new deal is actually on the will of the people of South Sudan. They are the ones to enforce it, sort of push the leaders. Yes. Are they empowered enough at the moment? I mean, looking at the empowerment of the people is not like, you know, they will be going to the street that, you know, you need to do this. But if an opposition leader leaves the government and he goes to the bush or leaves South Sudan, trying to initiate another war, and nobody follows, what happens?
He has no support.
There's no support.
And the same for the president, if he tries to do something that's viewed as unpopular.
The people are actually looking for the president. You know what? You could see, I mean, if you followed the news, when he came back, there was this, rallies and celebrations across the South supporting the president. This is the right thing to do, and we'll always be with you, so long as this is what is going to happen. So I don't think any normal South Sudanese would think otherwise. That war is better than peace. I mean, incomplete peace is better than better than total war. Few issues will be having problems in terms of power sharing, who should take what. But I think as time goes on, like any other country, we can build on them.
Okay.
We can build on them.
Let's talk about the dicey issue of sharing of or allocation of resources. How will this be handled, especially the issue of oil? Has that been captured in the deal adequately? Well,
oil is the national resource. There is no power sharing, there is no wealth sharing as per se, according to my knowledge. But what we are talking about power sharing in the central government and the state level, and which is one of the contentious issues now. The power sharing at the central government level was agreed. Portions were decided. What was not decided was how we represent the opposition group at the lower tier of the government, at the state level or county levels. Because, and the argument was, the opposition want to share power along those regions where they don't even have presence. Okay? Because you could see the rebellions and the rest, actually more or less will focus in some of the areas. But if now you want to be part of the government, of course, as a result of reconciliation, definitely will be given a chance. But you don't have a presence in, let's say, in central Kenya. The rebellion was somewhere south of it. And you want to be part of the government at that lower tier. The view of the government would be, okay, now you don't have president because we are talking of power sharing based on our weight in the region. So if you want to be represented in that particular region and you don't have presence, what you would be looking at from my perspective would be, you are trying to be there so that you recruit new recruits now. So you have a ground. And political work takes time.
It takes time. Speaking of taking time, the way the media has reported, both local and international, one would get the feeling that that was the final deal that's been signed, that now everything is in place. But it's actually quite a longer process. Yes. In a minute, just summarize for us, what do you believe are the next steps after what we saw on Sunday?
I mean, the process, the two components, the main issues were agreed, which is security arrangement. That was the problem.
Security arrangement.
And then power sharing.
And power sharing.
These were the main contentious issues. The other issues now, what we are left with is the representation of the opposition at the lower level and the issues of states. Because during the process of the struggle of war, there was a decision that the South Sudan was divided into 33 states. The opposition proposed 28 states. So there are contentious issues, whether to retain 28 or 32 or 10 states.
Okay.
That we
so inherited. That one is still being discussed.
That's what is being discussed.
Okay.
And there are agreement that these things the breakthrough would happen, because there are suggestions that instead of holding the whole process hostage, why don't we? There is a suggestion that we have to have a border commission formed of number of South Sudanese and for nationals like Rwanda, Algeria, Chad, and South Africa to help draw the borders between the state when it is agreed. So this is the only thing that we are still talking about. But the rest of the issues are more or less settled.
The rest of the issues are more or less settled. Yeah. In the 2015 deal, there was a proposal for the formation of a commission for truth, reconciliation and healing to investigate human rights violations. Do you think there'll be any trials in the future? Will anyone who sort of committed a crime be held responsible? Is that part of the discussion?
Well, I've never seen that being discussed. I mean, when you talk of truth and reconciliations, everybody would like to see truth as said and reconciliations has taken place. But as we speak, from the agenda that I'm seeing during discussion now in Khartoum, there's nothing about truth and reconciliations or even people being tried, because this is South Sudanese now negotiating straight.
Okay.
What we had at some point was, of course, with the help of international communities, some people were actually helping South Sudanese to talk. But this time around, the talk is, the negotiation is actually straight between South Sudanese alone.
Okay.
It is being facilitated by Sudan. Sudan, of course, was a part of Sudan before.
Okay.
So it's more or less into South Sudanese talking to themselves. Issues to do reconciliations, actually, when we have peace, definitely will be having some form of reconciliation process.
Do you have an opinion yourself on whether trials should take place in the future?
I'm a diplomat. I'm not a politician.
You're not a politician.
I'm not a politician.
So you leave that one for the politicians.
The politician will decide. Whatever police will decide, then I'll follow what the police instructions come back.
As a diplomat, I'm sure you've been following what the United States has been saying about South Sudan. Ambassador, they've been frustrated. They say that the leadership, I think both in the government and on the rebel side, have held sort of the nation captive. They've put a lot of money to South Sudan, money in which they've threatened to withhold because they say the leaders are simply not playing ball. How do you respond to those allegations from a strong partner like the United States?
Well, and we have, first of all, as South Sudanese, we strongly believe that the United States supported us during difficult times, and also during the implementation of the CPA. Definitely, that's the right.
Comprehensive Peace Agreement.
Yes, but again, as an African, when you give me something from voluntarily that you try to support me, you can always turn around and tell me, you know what, because I'm giving you this, you have to do this. We have difficulties, challenges that the Americans may not even be able to see where we are coming from. And the fact that the leaders, President Salva, as I earlier mentioned, was elected by the people of South Sudan. It should be the South Sudanese to decide that he is no longer fit to lead them, not the U.S. or anybody else.
Is that what you feel the U.S. were insinuating?
I think to some degree, yes.
Okay.
Some degree, yes.
They question the leadership.
Yes, they question the leadership, and this is a gentleman that actually fought all his life for this land. Nobody actually would believe that somebody else can tell him when it comes to South Sudan matters at heart, he will be lectured to be told what to do, because he, like any other comrades in the South that are now leading the government, they have been there. They fought throughout their life to make sure that South Sudan is free and an independent country. So failure, or actually perception that it might have not led the people the way they are supposed, is something else. I mean, you Americans have different statements about different countries all over the world. It's
who they are. So how do you respond to those who say that between these two leaders, if they did not have the hardline stances that they've displayed in the past, that fewer people would have lost their lives? You'd have fewer refugees leaving your borders. We're talking about 2-point-something million now, across Africa, especially around East Africa.
Well, I mean, it is unfortunate, of course. We can't deny that our people, South Sudanese, were supposed to be in their country, but for whatever reasons, they left the country because of the conflicts that have happened. When you talk of few hardliners, the issue to be addressed, we have issues of institution building. The issue of weak institution, this is one of the problems. And this is not because it is not our making. It is as a result of where we came from. Take, for example, when we had the 2013, the conflict in Juba, because we were caught off guard during the implementation period of the CPA in order of before working to have a national army, with the military doctrine clearly stated as like Kenyan army, for example. We could not do that because of the shortness of the period of the time we were engaged with Khartoum in how to implement CPA. All of a sudden became independent. Our army remained as they are. And as a result of that, when the conflict, public power sharing or power struggle within political parties is actually everywhere, even in the West. In the most advanced countries, you will always find people actually fighting. Politicians will always be wrangling about who is to take what. But because when you do that as a person, you won't find anybody, like in the army or the institution, that security would follow you because you happen to be from his region. Okay. In our situation, this is what we are talking about. The real correction of the problem is that we need to have time so that we build a national army. When something happens within political arena, which is a political struggle,
this will do what? It will bring down the tensions that have led to incidents we've seen in the past. Let me get a last word from you. You've traveled the world. I'm sure you've spoken to South Sudanese residents living all over. What do they say they need to see in South Sudan for them to go back home? Because building South Sudan is not just about institutions, but bringing back the labor, the minds that have gone abroad and studied, but have not found a place sort of to practice it back in South Sudan.
South Sudanese just need stability. If you go back, if you were to be in the South in 2013, you would have seen so many South Sudanese who came back from Australia, Canada, UK, and across the world.
They packed their bags and
they went back. Some of the professors who were teaching in very good universities actually decided to go back. And by the way, South Sudanese are very, very connected to the land. A few immigrants that you will find in some of the places where you will find somebody working as a medical doctor in one of the hospitals in Canada, he would fly back the following day to Juba, and he would go back to the village. I know quite a number of them. So all of they need is just the guns to be silent. If the guns are silent, South Sudan will come back. The rest, they will sort it out.
I want a yes or no answer from you on this one. Do you think this is the last deal?
As you know, you have to be optimistic.
So that's a yes.
It is a yes.
So for you,
next time we sit here, I'll tell you yes.
You tell me.
Yes.
Ambassador, thank you so much
thank you very much
for sparing time to be here with us today. We wish your nation all the best.
Thank you.
I believe all of East Africa cannot wait for a stable South Sudan.
Thank you very much.